I have the most reckless daughter. Yes, we spoiled her rotten when she was little, but this does not give her an allowance to now start acting like this. Guys, she's a mother, and she doesn't do anything, and I'm stuck watching her kids 24/7 because she's out doing this. A good day to everybody reading this. I'm 63, male, parent to my only daughter, Amy. She's 30. As we all do, I have many regrets in life. But the biggest one is the upbringing I gave to Amy. My wife Vivian is deceased, and I wanted to ensure that she had a good life, but we realized too late how much we spoiled her. My daughter got divorced because of her frivolous spending and her drinking habits. She took her kids' custody and did not take care of them properly. She would spend all the money she would get as childcare and alimony on drinking and other activities. Her kids' responsibilities fell on me. She demanded I spend my money too, but one day I put my foot down and stopped paying her and taking care of her children. She left the children hungry and did not send them to school. Well, the kids were getting scared of her, so I had to intervene, and she got a DUI warning and a warning from her school as well. When it got to be too much, she took her kids and drove away with them while she was drunk. She crashed her car, and when the cops took her, she expected me to bail her out. Now her entitled self thinks it's all my fault. To understand my daughter, guys, I'm going to have to tell you the story of her childhood. Vivian and I were having trouble having a child after we got married. We were about to turn to adoption when we discovered that Vivian was pregnant with Amy. Vivian has always been protective of Amy, and I would say that she spoiled her. We could not conceive another child after Amy, so she has always been the apple of our eyes. She was a bright child and was not initially very demanding, but as she grew older, her demands kept getting bigger. Vivian wanted to give her everything she wanted, but I protested against this as I did not want to completely spoil her. Vivian and I loved each other, but we often argued over our differences in parenting styles. Amy's demands grew when she was a teenager. She had the latest phone, would annually redecorate her bedroom according to her mood, and had a huge amount of pocket money. Vivian and I both worked and wanted to do our best for Amy. Amy, on the other hand, did not have any of the values I wanted to instill in her. She was wasteful of food, did not value money, and started to throw tantrums for things that we could not afford. She wanted a brand new car and when she got her license, but we could not afford the car that she wanted. She demanded that Vivian take out a loan for the car, and Vivian did not want to, but we knew her demands were too much for us. We could not keep up with them, and she would just throw these tantrums as it would keep growing out of control. One day, when Amy was around 16 years of age, she had a date waiting for her. A boy named Kevin, 19 at the time, came on a bike to pick her up. Vivian got scared and would not allow an older guy to take her on a bike. They fought, they argued, but Amy insisted on going and Vivian grabbed her arm to stop her, but Amy pushed her away. Vivian lost her balance and she fell down the stairs. I rushed to help Vivian and she hit her head on the railing and fell unconscious. I picked her up and took her to the doctor, and after a couple hours we figured out that she was fine. We took her home. She was very sick and had a constant headache for the next 2 days, and we thought that she would get better, but it turns out she had an undiagnosed hemorrhage. The doctors did not initially notice it, but when they did, it was too late. She had already suffered a stroke. The doctors tried to save her, but they could not. Amy and I were in immense pain at the time. I lashed out at Amy and blamed her for everything, and I started to resent her. Amy kept apologizing for everything that happened, and it took me time to move on, but my relationship with Amy had turned sour. I apologized to her for everything I said to her, but my negligence towards her had caused permanent damage. She would not listen to anything I said, and my negligence towards her had turned to alcoholism at a very young age. She would be out at parties until late at night and come home drunk. Her childhood friend Rebecca took her to the hospital because she overdosed, and at that point I realized I did not want to lose her, so I put her in a rehabilitation program for alcoholism. She lost a year of her education but ensured that she would contemplate her education just like Vivian wished she would. Well, After Amy moved out, she went back to her spoiled ways of spending and buying whatever she wished for. By the middle of the month, she would come to me begging for money because she had already spent all that we gave her, and she married Rebecca's brother Rupert. Rupert and Amy were equally responsible and would barely be able to manage their household. Their wedding was a grand affair of sorts, since Vivian had saved up a huge amount of money for her wedding. I wasn't really happy about Amy getting married at such a young age to such an irresponsible dude, but she would not listen and just have it her way. A year later, Amy gets pregnant. She wasn't really ready to have the child, but they decided to work towards a new phase in their life. Rupert completely changed after Amy had my first grandson, Timothy. Rupert started to be more responsible. He started to save money and wanted to be a really good father for Timothy. However, Amy did not change at all after becoming a parent, and she would still spend huge amounts of money and struggle to take on her duties as a mother. I was constantly present throughout Timothy's childhood, helping Amy out, then had her second child, Madison. Amy could not handle work and kids, so she decided to be a full-time stay-at-home mother. She was sick and tired of working. I still helped her with the parental duties, and Rupert continued to work, but now that Amy did not work, she expected him to give her money for expenses. Now that she had a lot of free time since she did not work, she would spend most of her time with her friends and at parties. I would take care of my grandchildren all the time, and she started drinking heavy and going out to parties very, very often. It was a burden on Rupert's pockets, and she wasn't taking care of the kids anyways. Rupert and Amy started to argue often, and I was reminded of the arguments I and Vivian had over the way that we wanted to raise Amy. Most of the arguments were left unresolved, which led to a divorce between the two. There was a fight for custody of the children, and I advised Amy to let Rupert have them because he's more responsible. Amy wanted the money that came with the children, so she wanted the kids. She claimed that she could take care of the kids better because she left her career to take care of them. And Rupert would be busy with work. Rupert pointed out her drinking problem, but Amy proved that it was all under control. Amy got the kids for the week, and Rupert would have them over the weekends. Amy wanted to move to the city, but she could not because of the children. She moved in with me. Rupert asked me to try my best to take care of the kids because he doesn't trust Amy. I promised him I would. I told Amy to start working since Madison was old enough to go to school, and I told her that I would take care of the kids until she got back from work. Amy paid no heed to what I said. She started spending my money on parties and would be drunk most of the day while I took care of my grandchildren. She was spending all the money Rupert gave her every month, as well as my money too, and I told her time and time again what she was doing wasn't good. The kids would not talk to Amy because they were scared of her, and as her alcoholism grew, her temper issues grew as well. I could not control her life anymore, like I did when she was a teenager. See, she just simply felt entitled to my money and went back to her demanding ways. She would throw tantrums while being drunk. So I gave her what she wanted, and I finally lost my patience and told her that I would not give her any money. I also told her that I would no longer take care of her children and that I had enough of her irresponsible behavior. I thought giving her the kids' responsibilities would help her get busy and leave her bad habits behind, but her habits had taken over. She was addicted. She would not wake up in the morning to send the kids to school, and the kids would go hungry most days. A lot of the days I intervened, sent them to school, and fed them. Amy knew that I would eventually give in and take care of the kids. The kids wanted to be with Rupert more, and I kept warning her to take care of them. Her teachers called and asked why the kids were not coming to school. Amy faked an illness and said that both kids were regularly falling sick, and we got a visit from authorities to check up on our kids and discovered that Amy lied. I assured them that I would take responsibility and that it would not happen again. I had a talk with Amy and offered to help with her alcoholism. I was trying to be supportive. I told her to just heal herself and try to have a healthy life. I promised to take care of the kids while she worked on herself, and she took the entire conversation the wrong way. She said that she wasn't an alcoholic and that she was fit to take care of her kids. She shouted that she was responsible enough and that she's going to prove that she can take care of them. She stormed out and I tried to stop her. She pushed me aside the same way that she pushed Vivian. I couldn't do anything to stop her and she drove off. I saw her drive in the distance and she could barely control her car, and I got into my car to follow her, but they had driven so far that I could not keep up. I couldn't sleep that night. I tried to call Rupert, but he would not pick up, and I didn't know what to do or how to bring her back. I got a call from the cops. She had gotten far when the cops found her rashly driving. They tested her for alcohol and pressed charges against her. I bailed her out as she was given a DUI, and the kids were extremely frightened that day. Timothy said he hates Mommy and misses Daddy, and Madison was scared that her mommy would go to jail. I told Amy to stay away from the kids. Amy wanted me to look after the kids so she could do what she wanted, and she got exactly that. I took charge of the kids while Amy spent the whole alimony and child support binge drinking and her new gambling habits. The children were living at their own expense, and Rupert would take them over the weekend. Amy got called to school again, and Timothy had made drawings about his mom being an alcoholic, and had changes in his behavior ever since the divorce. Amy came home and lashed out at the kids, blaming them for being complete snitches. Amy threatened that if they ever snitched again, the authorities would take them and put them in an orphanage. Madison got scared and started to cry, but Timothy said that they would be better off in an orphanage. Amy was under the influence of alcohol and screamed at the kids in foul languages. I tried to stop her, but she told me that I did not have any rights over the kids, and she blamed me for pitting her own kids against her. Amy told me that she was leaving with the kids and that they were not going to be staying with me any longer. I told her to stop, but she picked up Madison and dragged Timothy out by the arm and put them in the car. She was extremely drunk, so I tried my best to stop her, but she would not, and I didn't want to hurt the kids who were crying in the back seat. I tried to stop her by blocking the car, but she tried to run me over. I saved my own life by jumping out of the way at the last second, and I expected her to stop, but she drove off again. This time with the kids, I picked myself up and tried to find them. She turned off her phone and would not pick it up, and I alerted Rupert too. Amy had crashed into the pavement while parking. She sat down and went to get another drink for herself while passerbyers alerted the police. The kids were crying in the car when the police found them, and she was taken in for endangerment to a kid, and they were taken to Child Protection Services. I wasn't allowed to meet the kids until the authorities said it was okay for me, and Rupert wasn't allowed to meet them either. Amy had charges pressed against her, and this time she wasn't let off with some little warning. She had heavily endangered the kids and hit a lady who tried to stop her from re-entering her car, and crashed her car to under the influence of alcohol. They investigated her for drugs too, and the test report showed that she had taken drugs as well. Luckily for her, they weren't in her possession. Timothy got injured because of the seatbelt that he put on to protect himself, but it wasn't properly inserted, so it pierced his neck. I went to see Amy, and she begged me to get her out of this mess. She promised that she would not have anything to do with the kids again, and she'll do as I said, and I told her, Amy, it's too late. She tried to cover up her alcoholism by playing with my emotions, and she tried to give excuses about how bad it was for her when her mom died, and she was blamed for everything. The only person who ever loved her was her mother, and she had a hard time when she lost her. I knew whatever she was saying was to make me guilty and get her out of jail, but I declined and told her I gave her numerous chances to be a better human being. I even pulled her out of alcoholism once, but she chose to go down that route. I'd watched Rupert change and become more responsible for his kids, but Amy did not. I told her straight to her face that she was a bad parent. She called me a bad parent too and blamed it all on me, and she told me that it was all my fault, that I should fix it. I walked away and told her I wasn't going to bail her out this time, and if her mom was alive, she would not have either. The last thing I said to her was that I still believe she was the reason Vivian passed away. I was wrong to blame a child for somebody's death at that time, and maybe if I had been more supportive, things would have been different. But I saw her going down the same route even when Vivian was alive. She was extremely entitled, and perhaps she would have been even more entitled if Vivian was still alive. Vivian wanted to give her a good life, but she grew up to be someone not even close to the person we wanted to raise. I partly think it's my wife's fault for spoiling her, but as an adult and a parent, I expected her to understand what's wrong and what's not. She clearly doesn't understand that, and I don't see an ounce of guilt in her actions. She didn't even ask how the kids were. Any good parent would never put her kids in danger, and even if she did by accident, she would at least have some concern. All she cared about was herself. I have a second chance at parenting, and I will not let my grandchildren become Amy. They've suffered a lot in their childhood, and I hope Amy stays behind bars and away from the children. I never expected Amy to be this entitled, and she put her own kids in danger, and they could have even died. I didn't know my daughter would be this heartless. This is a lesson not just for me, but for all of us. We often want to give our kids the best, but be careful not to spoil them. If you want to give your kids everything, give them proper values and teach them to be better human beings. Warn them of bad habits and teach them that drinking and smoking not only are unhealthy but also ruin lives. I just hope my grandchildren will be alright. Update number 1. Hey readers, I'm extremely grateful for the comments and the prayers for the well-being of my grandchildren. Amy managed to bail herself out with the help of her new friends. She broke all ties with her childhood friend Rebecca. She tried to talk her into changing her ways, and the kids are now at home with me because Rupert is still under investigation. They saw me fit to take care of the children, as the kids insisted they felt the safest with me. Rupert wanted to apply for full custody. Both of us wanted to keep the kids out of Amy's sight. Timothy did not want to see Amy, but Madison missed her mom. I had a hard time taking care of little Madison, who just longed to see her mother. Amy came home one day and demanded to see her kids. I didn't let her, and I threatened to call the police, and Madison ran towards her. Amy assured me she only wanted to have a word, and she took Madison to her room. And Amy convinced Madison that we were all trying to prove that Amy is a person who drinks bad drinks. She told her that we were all lying, and Amy tried to talk to Timothy, but he didn't want to speak. Amy left, but said she would be back to take the kids, and when Rupert was proved innocent in the whole investigation, he wanted full-time custody of the kids and put a restraining order out against Amy. I fully supported Rupert on this, but Amy did not want Rupert to win. She would rather have the kids stay with me, or if not me, she would want them to go to the authorities. Amy was being petty because she didn't want Rupert to, quote, win. Amy tried to prove to the authorities that she was making an effort to change and that she would save her kids, but they completely declined to give her the children. She then tried throwing dirt on Rupert instead, and she cried, throwing tantrums in court, and blamed him for being abusive. She alleged that I and Rupert were abusive towards her, which made her turn to alcoholism. She came up with so many instances where Rupert was negligent and the kids were harmed. She took out petty, small incidents like how Timothy fell in the park, or how Madison almost choked on a grape under Rupert's supervision. She turned the courtroom into a soap opera. Finally, the authorities decided that the kids would go to his father and that I would be the legal guardian of the kids. However, they decided to give Amy a chance to redeem herself, and they canceled Rupert's pleas to put a restraining order on Amy. They spoke to Madison and decided that she needed to see her mom. They put forth the condition that Amy could meet the kids only under Rupert's supervision, and she was not allowed to leave with the kids. She was only allowed to meet the kids when Rupert allowed it, and it would be on the predetermined day, limited to only once a week. I don't want Amy to meet the kids at all, but things did not go as planned. Madison was happy that she'd get to see her mom at least once a week, but we weren't thrilled knowing how Amy would try to influence her, and I just hope that Amy takes this opportunity and makes amends for her kids. She promised to stop drinking if she wanted to see her children, and I just hope that she means what she's promised. I'm happy that Rupert will have his kids, and I would have loved to keep the kids with me, but I know I'm old and incapable. The kids need to be with their father, who's younger and more capable of taking care of them. Rupert promised that I could visit and take the kids whenever I pleased, but he warned that Amy might see this as an opportunity to try to talk to the children. Let's just see how everything goes, and I hope for the best for everyone, especially my daughter. Update number 2. Hello again, readers. I now have more to say about my entitled daughter, and what happened after my last update. My grandchildren went back to living their normal lives, and they were quite happy with their father. Amy was supposed to visit them once a week, but she wasn't very consistent. She would make excuses for why she could not visit, and Rupert and I did not really care, but it broke the kid's heart. Amy visited me several times to apologize and beg me to take her back in. She went from one friend to the other, living like a freeloader at people's mercy, and she eventually found work for herself and a place to live. I made sure my daughter was educated and highly qualified, but she still preferred to live at the mercy of others. I'm glad that she found work for herself. Since she had enough money from her job, she went back to her frivolous spending again, and her credit card bills piled up, and like always, she lived from paycheck to paycheck. Most of the time, she's unable to pay bills and rent on time, and she would be a no-show to meet the kids. But the time that she would show up, she would be drunk, to the extent that she could barely walk. Rupert decided that if she wanted to meet the kids, she would have to be sober. She lied to Madison and Timothy that their dad would not let her meet them, which created misunderstandings between the kids and Rupert, obviously. Well, she kept convincing them to believe that Rupert was the reason the couple split and Mommy and Daddy could not be together. She told them that the reason for her alcoholism was the fact that she was upset over the divorce. Well, the kids started to nag Rupert to get back together with Amy. They would often throw tantrums again and again, and they blamed Rupert for their mom's bad condition, and soon the seed that she planted in their minds grew into a tree. I tried convincing the kids the otherwise, but they would not believe either. Timothy was having a hard time at school, so he had to do extra classes to make up for the loss that he suffered under Amy's care. He used to be a bright child, but since he missed so much at school, he was getting behind. Timothy's teacher, Jess, got along and they started to see each other. Rupert saw her as the perfect mother for her kids, and I would have to agree with him. She got along with the kids so well, and that was until the kids realized that Rupert wanted to replace their mom and Jess. The kids started making their lives difficult by constantly throwing tantrums, and they were mirroring the way Amy behaves, and things got so out of hand that the kids ran away to Amy's apartment. We looked everywhere for the kids and even alerted the police, and Amy left the kids locked up at home and went out with her friends. A fire broke out in her apartment and the kids were stranded. Luckily, the police found the kids just in time, and firefighters were alerted to put out the fire. The kids weren't really hurt, but they were at a high risk of CO poisoning. Rupert had enough of Amy's behavior, that was it. After the whole incident, the kids believed that their father took care of them better than their mother. The kids were traumatized by the whole incident, but it gave Rupert the opportunity to place a restraining order against Amy. Amy was banned from ever contacting or meeting the kids again until further notice. Amy was allowed to meet them for the last time, but Timothy did not even want to say goodbye to her. Amy did not care much either. She went on with her life, but at least now she can't use the kids to spite Rupert and take her revenge. Jess moved in with Rupert, and they all started living like a family. I live alone, and they never leave me out. They always invited me over and come over to meet me. Rupert is like a son to me now. Rebecca still talks to Amy, so I have all the updates on her. No matter what she did, I would still like to know what my daughter's up to, and I still worry about her. Jess has taken on all the parenting responsibilities for the kids, and they're doing quite well. Things are turning out to be good, but the children are traumatized by whatever dangers Amy put them through, and I hope they recover soon and things get back to normal. Accepting Jess is not easy for them, but they're warming up to her. Madison still cries for her mom, but I think she realizes pretty soon that her mom made a lot of mistakes. I hope everyone is blessed and things will get better from now on. Final updates. Hello everybody reading. I just wanted to give you an update today on how my daughter and beloved grandchildren are doing. I felt guilty about not helping my daughter bail herself out and not taking her in and caring for her. After all, she's my daughter. And she was the apple of Vivian's eye. I'd like to thank all of you who commented advice. You guys helped me with my guilt, and so I'd like to thank you for the reassuring me that I did the right thing by not helping her. I do love her, but I think she's old enough to deal with her own problems like this, and I don't think forgiving her will make her realize her mistakes. I thought that she would be smart enough to make a better life for herself and heal from the bad habits now that she's older. She's getting older, but she's not getting wiser, and definitely not more responsible. Amy started to go to work drunk. She lost a lot of money in gambling too, and she was in a lot of debt since her bills piled up. She lost her job since she'd be drunk all the time and have bad work habits. No one would recommend her, so she couldn't find a job anywhere. Her landlord kicked her out because she could not pay the rent. She landed on my doorstep. She was very sick and had fallen over because she could not even stand up. I took her in and told her to go her own way after she got better. She begged at my feet to let her stay, and I put forth the condition that she would seek help for her addiction. She stayed at her friend's house, then made a new boyfriend, Mark, and moved in with him. She was constantly in and out of jail for driving under the influence, and her boyfriend just kept bailing her out. She'd get in trouble when Mark's house was raided for drugs, and she was found guilty. Mark admitted that she assisted him in selling. He tested out clean, but she was stuck in a serious case. She didn't have a good record, and all the evidence was piled against her, and she contacted me for help. I could tell whether my daughter was lying or telling the truth, and I knew she was not involved, but the cops had a hard time believing her. She asked me to pay for her lawyer, but I refused and told her I wanted to stay out of it. I knew I could have helped her, but she needed a lesson on the effect of her actions can have on her life. She was proven innocent because there was not much evidence against her, however, and she went back to living like a freeloader and struggled to get a job of her caliber. She recently got a job as a shopkeeper. I heard that she's trying to quit alcohol, too. Well, good for her. She's had a really hard time since she wasn't sheltered or protected by anybody, and I think she's really learned her lesson and wants to make amends. I would like to tell you all that Rupert proposed to Jess, and they're doing splendidly as a family. The children still miss their mother, but they took a step forwards with Jess, and they even call her Mom. They're going to get married pretty soon, and I just hope the best for their future. I spoke to Rupert, and we've decided that if Amy mends her ways, she can meet the kids in the future. For now, they're going to stay far, far away from her until she gets her life together and simply becomes a more responsible human being. This will be my last update about all this. I'd like to end by expressing my gratitude to all those who prayed for my grandchildren and whose comments helped guide me just to get rid of the guilt. I read a comment that was very interesting. I want to know what you guys think about it. It was basically explaining how Amy, yes, she might have been down the wrong path throughout today's story, but at the end of it, it looked like she was trying to turn her life around. She was quitting alcohol, and she was actually holding down a job at a shopkeeper. I want to know what your thoughts about that are, guys. Go ahead and drop your comments down below. Do you agree with OP not bailing out his daughter? I want to know your exact thoughts about it, so please let me know. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories every single day. Some of these stories are more dramatic than others, which could include mother-in-law dramas, wedding fiascos, Karen in the Wild stories, HOA nightmares. I mean, we really cover it all. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And also, check out the playlist down below. And remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.